Tonight's Sonora City Council Candidate Forum is brought to you by the Tuolumne County Farm Bureau and Nate's Tree Service.
The Tuolumne County Farm Bureau is hosting a Candidates Night Tuesday, February 6th at the Elks Lodge in Sonora. It's your chance to see the candidates face-to-face in all 3 supervisors' races, as well as Sonora City Council. Tuolumne County and the City of Sonora are faced with critical decisions in 2024 and beyond, and you'll want to know where each candidate stands on a variety of issues. Doors open at 5:30 and Candidates Night begins at 6. For more information, call 209-522-7278.
Take a good look at the tree branches that hang over your home and yard. Are they strong, or is there a chance they could break and fall? Nate's Tree Service, run by 6th-generation Tuolumne County residents with 30-plus years of experience in the tree service industry, can trim those limbs to keep you, your family, and your property safe. And with Nate's bucket truck, they can trim trees over 100 feet up. Give Nate's a call at 532-2460, 532-2460. Nate's Tree Service, license number 953843.
Well, this is the final night of our candidate forums ahead of the March 5th primary election. We have already heard from all the candidates running for the 3 Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors seats, and today we're shifting over to Sonora City Council. There are 3 seats open, and they are currently held by Mark Plummer, Matt Hawkins, and Ann Segerstrom. Only one of those candidates is seeking re-election, Ann Segerstrom, and the others running for the 2 seats, the 3 seats total, are Darren Duez, Bess Levine, and Stephen Opie. All are joining us today to talk about city issues. It's a similar format to our other forums. There will be 2 minutes for candidate introductions, a series of questions, and then 2 minutes for closing statements. So I'm going to kick things off with introductions and go around the table. We have everybody set up in alphabetical order here, and we'll start with Darren Duez.
Good morning. I'm Darren Duez. I'm running for Sonora City Council. I'm 41 years young, married to the most amazing woman in the world. I'm partial because she is mine. We just added to our family the birth of our son, Michael, who is almost 10 months. I'm a businessman who does contracting with local, state, and federal projects. I was a firefighter. I'm very active in the community. I'm very passionate on how we leave the city for the future generations.
And Bess Levine.
Hi, I'm Bess Levine. I'm Bess Levine. I'm a 6th-generation Sonora resident. I'm currently serving my 3rd year on the Sonora Planning Commission. I've worked downtown for nearly a decade at my mom's businesses, Tar Flat Antiques and Cerveni's Saloon. I was born and raised here. I went to the Sierra Waldorf School, then Sonora High, before graduating from Chico State with my degree in psychology. I'm an advocate for small businesses. Not only are they the backbone of our local economy, but they greatly contribute to the unique character that makes our town so special. I understand the hard work and dedication it takes to run a small business, and I want to communicate and support small business owners, whether they live in the city or not. I want to address housing stock issues and possible solutions. We need responsible and sustainable housing projects that cater to a variety of needs. And when it comes to these new projects, I can use my knowledge of Sonora and various neighborhoods to choose the right project for the right area. It's clear that fire safety is a critical issue on the forefront of everyone's minds, and fires have already greatly impacted our city. We can help mitigate this risk by being proactive with creating defensible space, through education, and by recognizing high-risk areas. My campaign is rooted in positivity and the love I have for Sonora. I would love and appreciate your support. Thank you.
And Stephen Opie.
Hello, my name is Stephen Opie. I have been a business owner in this community for the last 10 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. My family business goes back to the 1950s in the same location. A huge part of this community as far as, how it has affected me throughout my life. It has turned me into the person that I am today. I care about the relationship that we have as a city council with our constituents. I really want to focus on the simple stuff, budget, fiscal responsibility, roads. Basically let's help the town become great, because I am just really tired of driving on our roads knowing that they are some of the worst roads in the community, some of the worst roads in the state. And I really want to change that around and refocus our tax dollars onto supporting the people who pay them.
And Ann Segerstrom.
Hi, Ann Segerstrom here. and I'm running for re-election to Sonora City Council. Due to the recent council turnover and a decision by 2 council members to run for Supervisor District 1, if re-elected, I will be the longest-serving council member at 4 years. I want to apply my career experience with the learnings from this past term to continue my commitment to secure the stability, growth, and prosperity for our small city. If re-elected, expect a representative who is 100% committed to Sonora and its residents, and an individual who respects the nonpartisan position of a council member to work for the benefit of all. Thanks, and remember to vote on March 5.
And I have a list of questions I'm going to ask all the candidates. We're going to go around the table. Different people will start first at different times. Bess Levine, you'll be the first for our first question here, and it's kind of just a chance to get to know you a little bit better. You know, what would you rank as your top 3 priorities as for the city as a city council member?
Thank you. Yeah, kind of as I stated in my intro, advocating and supporting our local small businesses. My family has had businesses and made a livelihood off of small business for generations now, spanning back to when my grandpa owned the 76 gas station downtown Sonora. I want to address housing stock issues and possible solutions. That includes houses to be bought and also rentals. If you've tried to look for a rental or know someone that has in our community, it's really difficult. I helped someone get into a rental recently. I toured it for them, and I was told by the listing agent that there was 23 other applicants already. And then obviously, fire safety is just a huge risk and issue in our community that I want to address.
Stephen Opie, same question for you. The top 3 priorities for the city as a council member.
Well, as I spoke about, roads was the biggest thing that sticks out because I think everybody sees that. The things people don't see is, fire department, police department, public works. They might see fire and police out working, but public works is probably the lowest on that totem pole. I think those are 3 organizations that we have within city staff that are very important. These are the hardworking individuals that do the hard work on the streets for us. I think we need to make sure that they're taken care of. I think that we need to make sure that our roads are taken care of. So that was all confined into budget and fiscal responsibility, of course. I've moved on. Basically, freedom and liberty. That's it's really a number one thing to me. I do not believe that we need to, try to tell people what they have to do. I believe it is perfectly fine to let individuals live their lives. We are, all in this together, basically. Let's not, take each other out over what we think is better for somebody else. Let's let people decide what's good for themselves. And, of course, number 3 would be homelessness. It has become a very rampant problem. The city has done a pretty good job of dealing with it. The city did buy a property. It was an old barbershop behind the Hong Kong restaurant. The only problem I see with that is it's been vacant for the last couple of years since we voted on it in the Planning Commission. I'd love to see that turn around. They work with NGOs to get things done, which I think is very smart because the NGOs are the ones who know how to help people. City staff, city council members, we don't know the first thing about how to fix the homeless problems that we have. Let's let the NGOs step in and help us out and make Sonora a wonderful place.
And Ann Segerstrom, same question.
Yeah. Well, I guess from a city council member's perspective, in the last 3.5 years, I see maintaining the city's fiscal solvency and structural stability key. Because city voters agreed with the council and trusted us to implement a 1% sales tax increase to ensure funding for police, fire, and public safety. We now have a stopgap to help our budget with our employees and paying them a competitive wage with cities around us so that we can, second, attract and retain qualified employees. Our city right now is 11 employees down from a high of 55 employees, so we're just one person thick in every single job description, and we need to build that up. We now have our sales tax revenues that will help us in this regard to attract hopefully what we call lateral employees from cities and counties surrounding us that can help us serve the city, on the highest level available to us. And finally, there is not known to many people an equitable city-county tax share agreement on properties, especially our supermarket and shopping areas. And I would like to see that renegotiated for the city's benefit.
And Darren Duez, top 3 priorities.
My top 3 priorities, number 1 is fiscal responsibility with Measure Y. We have a new revenue source, which is the people's money, and we forget. So that would lead into the number 2 topic is transparency. How are we spending your money? Are we doing it efficiently, and what are we spending it on? Economic development is another one that I've dove into, and I think that we can raise the tides, which will bring everyone with us. There is some fallbacks, and there needs to be a lot of strategic planning, which goes forth to do that, but is something moving forward with the general plan that's going to be coming for an update that we need to dive into and see. The fiscal responsibility back to is when we do this, it's going to be $1 million cost for the general plan update. And is it something that the city is going to use the money efficiently for, and how are we going to develop that to go forth for the community? The transparency is when we spend the money, what are we spending it on? We just got this Measure Y, which is typically $4 million that we're moving forward with, and it was for public safety. So what's left over, how much has been utilized, and going forward, are we going to grow into that money and be in the same boat we are within the 20-year sunset clause? So there's a lot of moving parts on that, but the economic development is probably my number 1. As we move up, we can raise the tides to bring everyone up with us. That's the housing, the job market, the businesses here. It's something that's super important to me.
Stephen Opie, you get the next question first, and it does have to do with business and economic development. You know, the more tax dollars local businesses generate, the more money for city governments to spend on services. What do you feel should be the city's strategy when it comes to economic development?
So one good thing we have going for us is we have a very good city staff that's very helpful in these situations. They know a lot more than I do about that, and I will not lie to you and act like I do know a whole bunch about it. Being a small business owner myself, the experiences that I have had is if you basically just let government and regulations get out of your way, you as a business individual can make things happen. You can make more money. You can help the community more. And like Darren had said, you know, all boats float with the rising tide. So I would love to see, you know, the city kind of step back, especially in the downtown area, on regulations and things like that, so that we can actually help attract businesses to the downtown area. There's a lot of different areas that are vacant that we could also attract, business to as well, for anything from manufacturing to, just selling antiques. I'm not really picky, but let's get some business in here. And the ways I see it happening is basically rolling back red tape that's keeping individuals able to work. Let's let them work.
And Ann Segerstrom.
As far as economic development is concerned, the city is somewhat constrained by its size. And we have, 3 square miles approximately. So our city administrator was saying that we needed to plan for growth 30 years ago. So we're starting to look at that now. We're constrained by the county on all sides. So we need to work with the county, if indeed possible, to look at annexation, possibly out Highway 49, so there is area for growth for businesses and manufacturing. Right now, there's not much space. We also are working in the city on a permitting, putting the permitting process online so people can apply and be have their permits timed so they're approved in a logical order versus higgledy-piggledy, as sometimes happens now with paper permitting. And in general, I think, once again, the tax share agreement is something that we need to work with the county because in a lot of the situations, we're getting 7% of the income versus the county 93%, and these are city properties. So I would I would also request that the county and the city administrator engage more directly on these issues.
And Darren Duez, over to you about what you feel should be the city's strategy when it comes to economic development.
Well, a lot of people don't understand what economic development is. Programs, policies, or activities that seek to improve the economic well-being and quality of life for the community. With that in mind, moving forward, business growth, I agree with Ann. I think that the annexation, most cities have to grow and have to move. I don't have a general plan of where we would do that to and what we would do there. But there is some of that devil's advocate there. Or do we have the housing to support if we bring up businesses? Do we have the ability to house? No, we don't at this point. Why haven't we had house growth? If you look back in the actual general plan, you'll see that it has been very, very small and minuscule over the 5 years. There's maybe 5 to 10 houses that have been built in Sonora City. Why is that? Some of that is regulation. Some of that is we're not doing a good job. Some of that is outside of the control of city council, which would be TUD. Some of that infrastructure costs. So when we move that economic development needle, it has to be done efficiently and it has to be done strategically. When you have to have the infrastructure, you have to have the water, you have to have the jobs, you have to have the housing. So when we do that, it's a deep dive. It's not something simple and easy. What we need to start on is a basic plan of how we're going to move the needle, where we're going to start. There is only so much land, like Ann said, inside the city limits. There's 3 by 3 square miles. Where do we have that we can build? The annexation would give us some of that to be able to do. Where that goes, north, south, east, or west, doesn't matter to me as long as we can start to put houses and people in houses. And then we can start to worry about qualified jobs. We can do qualified people for those jobs. We can woo businesses up here so that everybody gets to rise together. The other part of that is, are we going to price out some of the retired people that we have here with that? When we have costs go up and we have housing right now, it's very expensive to have any of that. Even rentals are through the roof. So it's a devil's advocate game when we sit down and we talk about it. The other thing we don't talk about is the people. If there's 50% of people that say, yes, we need it, and 50% we don't, that education that we need to do of what it involves is what we need to be doing. Thanks, BJ.
And Bess Levine.
Yeah, I agree. You know, we're constrained by a lack of land that can be developed for new economic ventures. I'll speak mostly to what I know, which is the downtown historic district that houses our local small businesses, restaurants, retail, things like that. There's been a lot of great programs, especially over the last several years. Christmas Town has really helped our local businesses during the busy season of November, December, Christmas time. That's bringing more tourists into restaurants and shops, which obviously creates tax revenue and benefits the Measure Y 1% sales tax. Second Saturday is wonderful. If you drive through town on Second Saturday, businesses, restaurants are bustling. And I think it would be a really good idea, too, to ask the local business owners, whether they live in the city limits or not, and kind of take their lead on some things. They'll know better than anyone what they need to help them succeed. Also, fully staffing public works if possible to help keep the city looking aesthetic and clean can only help businesses as well. Thank you.
Next question, we'll start out with Ann Segerstrom. The city-county relationship has been stressed over how to address homelessness. How do you feel the city should go about addressing homelessness in light of the current strain with the county?
Well, the city is constrained, by its size and its budget as far as homelessness is concerned. City gets no state or federal funding for homelessness, so all of those monies go to the county, and so far the county has been unfriendly to the city in terms of moving most of the homeless into if not in the city, the surrounding area, and also purchasing properties within the city to house the homeless. They have Rafferty Court so far. That 50-person facility has not opened. From what I understand, they can't find. No one responded to their RFP to run the facility, so. We really don't even know now whether these kinds of restructuring of lifestyles actually work. So the city is caught in a hard place here, because it's not that we don't want to be compassionate or humane, but we have very, very little facilities to actually assist. And as far as the property on Stewart Street is concerned, the city is probably going to sell that property because we don't have the $1 million it would take to refurbish it and to make it into a shelter, a 10-person shelter. And also, I think there are some historical building restrictions on it, so it would have to be restored to a certain specification. So, it's the homeless situation is really tough, and for a small 5,000-person city, we have very few tools to really address it, other than working with the county to the best of our ability.
And Darren Duaz, same question over to you. How should the city address homelessness in light of the current strain with the county?
So the county and city disdain, I'd say, has been going on not just on homelessness. Let's talk about just homelessness for this. We don't do a good job of reaching out to our tribal facilities who have behavioral health. They have facilities around that could take on new patients and do different things for it. There is the drug and alcohol portion. I have a 3-pillar system of what homelessness is. And the financial people is, down and out, lack of housing, poor job, low wages. Those are the easiest fixable, which we can have metrics to move forward with and trigger points. The dependency problem, we have local drug and alcohol rehabilitation, and we have the tribes which are opening facilities or have facilities right next to the city or in city limits that we can partner with to get some of that done. We house nearly 50% of the homeless population in the county, in the city. We are responsible for that. The county's relationship is not great. They need to work in good faith. That is our big brother in reality. We're all here for the same thing. The constituents in the county and the constituents in the city all want one thing, is good prosperity, happy lives, and everything. We can work good with that. I think Ann touched the city administrator and the county administrator kind of butt heads because they have a job to do. But in reality, they need to work in good faith to come up with a general plan. The financing problem with the city not getting anything for the homeless is we are stuck having the services. We have everything here, so they come and the trash cleanup and Camp Hope and all that stuff. So there needs to be a little give and take, and I think that the administrators, because we can do a good job of handshaking with the Board of Supervisors and being friendly, but the administrators are really the backbone of what puts everything together.
And Bess Levine, same question over to you about homelessness.
Yeah, I think the lack of funding in terms of taking action and in terms of homeless is a big issue. As Ann and Darren mentioned, we're kind of stuck, working with the county to the best of our ability and trying to work together. I do think it's really important to recognize different populations of homeless people, newly homeless, long-term homeless people, mentally ill, or people that struggle with addiction. They've recently, I think just this week, did the point in time count of the homeless people in our area. I think that'll give a really good idea of kind of what we're dealing with in terms of a number of homeless people, and that also categorizes into different populations, like I mentioned. I think it's really important to listen to and address the specific needs of residents and business owners. Our local businesses are obviously being impacted by the homeless population in different avenues. And obviously working with our local police if there's any illegal activity going on. We have a lot of great local agencies that are doing great work. ATCA, Resiliency Village, Give Someone a Chance, Interfaith, One Pile at a Time have done so much cleanup work. And there's the HOST program, the Homeless Outreach Support Team, that kind of brings services out into the field. So I think bolstering those programs and then just working with the city and using our budget to the best of our ability is what we can do right now.
And Stephen Opie.
Okay, so as I stated earlier in my opening statement, basically NGOs are the backbone of dealing with these kinds of problems. They have the staff. They've been doing it for years. I have faith in ATCA, resilience. They have proved themselves over the years. ATCA has been a part of our community for as long as I can remember. As a kid walking through downtown, I remember that there was a homeless shelter right next to Gold Country. It's still there, and it's not really a shelter, I'm sorry. It is, but basically they help people get back on their feet. They help them, they'll get jobs, they help them to get out and become contributing members of society, which is the most important thing to me. I do not believe anybody is beyond, help. I think people can be helped no matter how deep they think that they are or how far gone they think that they are. So using these NGOs, the city has done a very good job with. They've worked with ADCA. I don't know if they've worked with Resiliency or Seventh-day Adventist, but I do know that those are two other organizations that do help homeless people get off the streets. And, I mean, let's face it, who wants to be sleeping next to a creek this time of year?
We need to take a quick break. Tonight's Sonora City Council Candidate Forum is sponsored by the Tuolumne County Farm Bureau and Nate's Tree Service.
The Tuolumne County Farm Bureau is hosting a Candidates Night Tuesday, February 6th at the Elks Lodge in Sonora. It's your chance to see the candidates face-to-face in all 3 supervisors' races, as well as Sonora City Council. Tuolumne County and the city of Sonora are faced with critical decisions in 2024 and beyond, and you'll want to know where each candidate stands on a variety of issues. Doors open at 5:30 and Candidates Night begins at 6. For more information, call 209-522-7278.
Take a good look at the tree branches that hang over your home and yard. Are they strong, or is there a chance they could break and fall? Nate's Tree Service, run by 6th-generation Tuolumne County residents with 30-plus years of experience in the tree service industry, can trim those limbs to keep you, your family, and your property safe. And with Nate's bucket truck, they can trim trees over 100 feet up. Give Nate's a call at 532-2460, 532-2460. Nate's Tree Service, license number 953843.
Darren Duez, you get the next question first. Downtown Sonora has great things going for it. It's the center of commerce in the county, but are there things that you feel that could be done to make it a more desirable place for locals and visitors alike?
I do. I think that some of the businesses that have vacancies, at least the building locations have vacancies, and we can do something to get those in. Most people that come here come for environment, they come for historics, they come for food, which is a big thing, but they really stop about the park downtown. If you're walking, you do the loop, you turn at the park and you come back down. I think moving some of the businesses up closer to the mainstream, and also we got to promote the businesses that are on the non-Main Street. I think that those guys get missed a lot. They are the redheaded stepchild. One, they don't get listened to. I've talked to a few myself that they don't have an ear to twist at all. But we can promote businesses that come and do this. Again, we are historic. We are a small town. So I'm not saying bring in mega-sized structures and do that. But there's boutique shops, there's antique shops. What are we missing? Going back to the drawing board and figuring it out. How can we woo businesses to come in and do different things? Downtown is not from the stoplight at Stockton to the park. It is all of Washington Street, and we can promote and do a better job of getting good business. The recycled dollars that we have now, if we had more businesses, it would be non-recycled money, which means we could do more. There is some issues with infrastructure in some of those buildings. Maybe there's something that the county can do. Maybe there's some grants that are available for the city that can put forth some of that infrastructure to get some of these buildings. Some of them are dilapidated. There is some historical constraints on that, but we can do a good job to make these habitable buildings that will be growth, that will be business, that will be any sort of thing that goes in their restaurant. It's tough with the sidewalks not being ADA compliant in some locations, but I think in 2025 or 6, they're doing an alignment from Caltrans is going to be redoing sidewalks in a certain portion. So there's a lot of things that we can do to move forth to get business growth.
Bess Levine, same question over to you. Are there things that you feel that could be done to make downtown Sonora a more desirable place for locals and visitors alike?
Sure, yeah. Our downtown district is, I think, wonderful. I mean, sure, there's some things that could be made better, but I think it's great. I quite literally grew up downtown Sonora. My first job was sweeping the sidewalk in front of Tar Flat, which is now Revive Coffee. I've watched my mom restore some of the dilapidated buildings that we speak of. And that is not for the faint of heart, let me tell you. But yeah, like I said before, programs like Christmas Town and Second Saturday and some of the Vision Sonora projects that have gone on downtown, I think have really not only made Sonora look beautiful and welcoming to tourists, but have also gotten a lot of locals out. And I can speak from experience, locals really do hold up and bolster the small businesses and keep them going, especially in the slower seasons, which we're kind of currently in right now for some businesses. I go downtown and spend my money at a local business every single day, I would say. So, yeah, there are some buildings that need structural work, and like Darren mentioned, there are restrictions on that. And once you kind of open up some of these buildings, you have to make everything ADI compliant, which can become very expensive, and the permitting process can be difficult. And another thing I think is really important is to ask the small business owners themselves what they need to succeed. We can talk about it all day as city council members, but I think if we get out there and ask them, invite them, encourage them to come to meetings or even just write a letter or make a phone call, that can be really beneficial.
And Stephen Opie.
Yes, so I have a business just outside of downtown area right next to the high school. And one thing I can tell you that just helps business flourish is just getting government regulations, things like that, out of the way. We have done a good job of keeping our business afloat. It is not easy to do this day and age, but we have figured out how to do it about 13 years ago, and we've been rolling with it ever since. In the downtown area, the only thing I could see that really could help businesses from a city council perspective is if we could actually find grants to help these businesses that are dealing with historic properties and things like that, because they are out there, they are available. And, we have city administrator, city staff that are in there. They're more than willing to help, I'm sure. And, let them do their job, and let's work with them. Let's let the, business individuals work with them and let the community become a great community and all work together.
And over to Ann Segerstrom.
I guess I'm taking a different perspective on this. As a frequent walker downtown, we all know that traffic is horrendous, and people are using our residential side streets as throughways between 49 and 108. And I'm all for pushing ahead with the Greenlee bypass and opening up our downtown to people who can actually stop, park, and shop, and who aren't in danger of losing their lives by crossing the street. I just watch people accelerate. Darren was talking about how above the park people don't, they don't move up. Well, I see at the Veterans Administration, people just start to accelerate like, leaving town like there's no high school. I mean, I'm always just amazed. I know part of it is probably the Department of Motor Vehicles giving out licenses to people who can't drive. But I think that if we can push forward with the Greenlee bypass, move some of this traffic out of downtown, we have our Public Works has now a sidewalk washing, street sweeping and sidewalk washing. We have the watch program that comes through, and I have to give a shout out to the Sonora Chamber because they work with the city to have the watch program, clean the trash. The City Public Works washes the sidewalks, I think, once a week. So we are trying, but the traffic situation, I think, really impacts, how people, their decision to stop downtown, because it's hard to move through town, and parking, even if it's 2 blocks off, seems to be a prohibitive walking situation. So Greenlee bypass, let's do it.
Segues great into my next question. Bess Levine, you are the first one to get this one. There has long been talk about the Greenlee Road North-South Connector project to improve traffic circulation. Is that something that you would get behind and support? Yeah,
that's another thing. I've talked with my mom, Marianne Wright, quite literally my whole life about the Greenlee bypass. That's been in talks for a long time. I know some small business owners have, although mostly for it, have expressed some concern that it will minimize downtown traffic. People won't be driving by businesses and deciding on a whim to park in front of one and go in. I don't think that that's too much of a concern, and I personally am in support of the Greenlee bypass. I think it would be really great for traffic, not only for the residents that live downtown and have a hard time getting to their houses, in a timely manner and going and parking at businesses and getting in there, but also in terms of evacuation routes for fire and things like that. I think that it would make things safer, and maybe we could get people driving a little slower on our historic roads in the downtown district. So I think it would be a positive all around.
Stephen Opie.
Yeah, I actually am in support of the Greenlee bypass just because it, opens it up between Columbia and East Sonora. If there was a fire like the Washington fire, people that are on the East Sonora side, where do they go? If they're on the Tuolumne side, where do they go? Fires burn uphill. That is the scariest thing to me. I know individuals who have property on that, and there will have to be some deliberation between them and city. I do not believe in eminent domain where we just railroad everybody. I believe in, clear and concise action where we actually deal with people and we as a community can work together and get things done.
And Ann Segerstrom, back to you.
Well, I did just address the Greenlee bypass, but and it is still under study because in order for the big trucks, the logging trucks, the gravel trucks, and that kind of thing, the grade has to be a certain level. So it looks like it's going to be further out from Sonora than right on the edge of town. But as my other candidates have mentioned, it is really important for fire and evacuation because during the Washington fire, downtown was chaos. And people were unable to get out of town and had no place to actually get out of town to, is no directions. So the Greenlee bypass would, really let State Route 49 become a shopping street through Sonora, and for people who would like to come through Sonora, and for people who have business between Columbia and Tuolumne, or between 49 and 108, it would be a direct route. So, it's been a long time coming, and it's probably a long time in the future, but we do need a Greenlee bypass.
And Darren Duez.
The Greenlee bypass, I am on board for. There is a few questions that I have: is whose property is it going to run through? How is it going to run? Has anyone reached out and talked to the schools and taken their account into that? Because that would run down Greenlee. We definitely need it for fire evacuation. We definitely need it for some of the torrents for traffic for downtown. Again, I have the sentiment of the logging trucks. Are we just transferring the traffic from one location to another? Cost association, we're looking at probably $30 to $40 million for that. Is that going to be something that's the taxpayer burden, or is that going to be something that the state or fire or someone's going to be able to contribute? Has anyone talked about, LAFCO's problem with letting us do any of that? Or so there's a lot of problems that could arise with it. I think it's generally a great idea. But at this point, is it an idea, and it's in the study phase, and I think that there's a lot more outreach and public relations that need to be done. We're taking traffic from downtown and moving it to someone else's backyard, and I'm sure that those people are really going to love Jake breaks and logging trucks and everything else go down. So I'm in favor of it, but it has to be done responsibly. I also think that Jamestown Road's another one that probably should. I know it doesn't involve the city, but again, that's another thoroughfare, like Ann said, that people get on and do 90 miles an hour. So there's some things we can do to minimize the traffic downtown. Greenlee bypass is definitely needed, but what's it going to affect? Are we widening the roads? Are we moving some of the buildings? It's so tight in there. I just don't see how we do that at this point without really strategizing and coming up with a general plan. Connecting Lyons with 108 out there, 49 out there, that's a great idea. I think that would move the needle some, but then once you hit there, then we have a lot of questions of what's going to happen with the businesses that are there, what's going to happen with the traffic. Parking downtown's bad. The parking over there is going to be even worse because that'll be the new thoroughfare where it'll be commercial buildings.
Next question, I'll start with Stephen Opie. We are sitting in downtown Sonora, which was the spot under an evacuation order due to the Washington fire just a couple of years ago. Are there things that you feel that the city could do better to prepare for future emergencies like that?
So I think the fire departments did a great job on reacting to that fire. We all know that the fire was started from a homeless camp There was at least 3 other fires, or maybe there was 3 fires that did catch their attention. So the one thing that the city did do after that was clean and clear. They did a very good job on that because you just can't have fires in bushy areas and things like that, right? It did drive me a little batty when the fire department came out to my house and told me I had to move my brush pile, but I got rid of my brush pile and my house is not burned down. So I think clean and clear was a real good step in the right direction. I think that they responded to it very well, and they did not let it get out of control. There was some houses that were burned in it, and that is a tragedy, but it could have become the next Paradise Fire if they didn't react as good as they did.
And Ann Segerstrom.
We do have to give a shout out to the Sonora Fire Department and our fire chief, Amy New. I mean, she is totally prepared, and there is a county Office of Emergency Services that the city of Sonora does participate in and is integrated into, so that the response to critical fires like that was amazing. And we also have to say thank you to CAL FIRE that has the air station out at Columbia, because without that and without a non-windy day, we were in a terrible situation. And the city has now worked with the Fire Safe Council, the Countywide Fire Safe Council, and contributed to a grant that would finish clearing out Dragoon Gulch, which is also a kind of a fire flu right now with the amount of brush that's through there and threatens the area out around Snell Street and Racetrack Road. So hopefully that'll be cleared. But, continuing to push for fire-safe neighborhoods, which it's very hard to get people involved in brushing their properties. I know it's expensive, but it really is a safety factor. As Stephen mentioned, the fire goes uphill, and we all live on hills. So I would encourage anyone who wants to organize their neighborhood for fire safe to encourage neighbors to work together to clear lots. And the Sonora Police also have been very involved with getting people organized for emergency situations, and the county and the city both work together to try and organize people. But it is everyone's individual responsibility for knowing about these services.
And Darren Duez.
I think having a good fire evacuation plan is probably very, very important. Signage going up. I also have to give a shout out to Chief New, who does an amazing job. I know that she has talked a lot about that evacuation plan, but I think it goes down to your household, what you're going to do in a situation. It's not just fires we deal with. We deal with all kinds of different ecological problems. So knowing what you're going to do and knowing where you're going to go, having that plan of awareness first. My house, I have one, and mine is get the pets. Get our pets, get them in carriers, get them in the car, and let's go the least objectionable route where I'm not causing more traffic or chaos, which for me is the 49 corridor for Angels or the corridor over for Murphy's to get out of here. If the fire's coming that way, obviously I have to change that up a little bit. But knowing what you're going to do, defensible space is a huge portion. I think as a fireman, I can talk about a lot. Clearing that dead and down and the duff fires that start and move into conflagration fires really start on the ground. And whether that's homeless, burning piles, accidental, lightning strikes, whatever they are potentials to run. We saw that in Paradise. Their roads were very narrow. They had no real evacuation plan, and it was a very, very bad, tragic event. We can learn from that and put those plans in place to really fix that. We have typically, 5 exits from Tuolumne County, and knowing where you're going to go so you're not causing more traffic and more chaos and more problems. It is a very stressful event, and people are going to be on tilt, so you need to have a ready to go signage of where you're going to go. Neighborhoods talking about, hey, Miss Jones down the street who's 85 is going to need some help grabbing her stuff and throwing it in, and just being proactive to it is probably one of the most important things of having any type of evacuation plan or fire or even problems. There's flooding in low-lying areas. We see that here in Sonora quite often. So there's got to be some plans put in place.
And Bess Levine.
Yeah, I do think it's up to each individual household to be prepared on some level and have a plan. Our fire department was prepared, and they had a great response. And I think it could have been a lot worse than it was, as Ann and Darren said. promoting projects like the Dragon Gulch clearing is great. I recently met with some of the heads of the Firewise communities in the city of Sonora, which are Elks Hill and Sonora Knolls. They explained to me the benefits of those Firewise communities that are recognized for fire safety efforts like fuel reduction, getting limbs up off the ground, clearing underbrush, and using fire-safe materials when they can. And this is really a community-driven effort that can protect an entire area. They explained to me that one person creating a fire break around their own house and protecting their property is great, but if you can talk to your neighbors and get 10, 20, or more people involved, you can create a fire break that can protect a whole neighborhood or possibly even the whole town. So that's really important. And I think also just having the education and recognizing areas that are at the highest risk. We can do this by asking residents, experts, doing studies, working with the county, and then also, reviewing what the Sonora Fire Department needs in terms of budget and staffing can also help.
We also invited the community to submit questions ahead of our candidate forums. We did have one specifically for the Sonora City Council race from a city resident who wanted to know, what is your vision for the city of Sonora and how do you see yourself implementing this vision during your term of office? And Ann Segerstrom, you are the next on that,
Whoa, yeah.
that question.
My vision for the city of Sonora, I mean that's a kind of a broad question, and having served on the city council now 3.5 years, it's more of a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month kind of situation versus having this long, long-term kind of over the rainbow vision, and I've discovered that there's a lot of mechanics involved, and wheels turn slowly. It's not that you don't want things to happen, but there's protocols, there's ordinances, there's of course budget. So you work hard within those constraints to do the best you can for everyone in the city.
And Darren Duez.
So my vision for Sonora is at a time where I grew up. I really loved going downtown. I really loved being out. I think now with the modern technology, we're not going to see too much of that anymore. But a place where you can take your family, a place where we can have fun. We're going to be the stewards of the city for our term, this term or the next term, depending on how long it is. I want to leave this better than I inherited it, and that's how I have to put it. Most people have no idea what the job of city council is. It's an overview of city policies, taking appropriate actions, approving pay disbursements, funding departments, public safety, public works, all that, and listening to the constituents. What I always tell everyone, even my employees, is I say, bring me a solution, don't bring me a problem, and do it before it gets really, really out of control. So being in the city council seat, one person has no power. So I can't influence change unless I have two other individuals that's a 3-2 vote to do that. So when something happens, sometimes we don't see it. And the county, the city, the constituents need to stand up and say, hey, we're seeing a problem here. This is what's going on. Again, this is their city. We're just the stewards for the short term that we're in.
And Bess Levine.
Yeah, my vision for Sonora and what I would like to do as a city council person is really, I don't want to do this because I want to change Sonora. I really want to do it because I love how Sonora is, and I want to be a greater part of what makes it so wonderful, and a place that me and my family have lived for 6 generations now. I want it to be a place where people that are, I'm 28, people my age or even younger can want to live here, can find jobs and housing and fun and recreation or whatever it may be. I've gotten lots of my friends that are around my age to move back, and they're loving it. So that's really my vision for Sonora. And I love feeling safe here. I think that's really important. And yeah, there are some things that I think could be made better, but when it comes right down to it, I think Sonora is a pretty great place.
And Stephen Opie.
I will second that motion. Sonora is a very great place. Growing up here with $20 for me and my 2 brothers, or my sister and my other brother, we would always go through downtown, and $20 would make it quite a ways. I don't know if you could do that with $100 with 3 people anymore. But I'd like to bring it back to where all the storefronts are open. People are just enjoying town. I do it now with my kids. A lot less stores are open than what was open back then. But I think if we could bring it back to as far as letting businesses thrive, letting people thrive, let people be prosperous, that is where it really counts to me. Just let people live their lives and, don't step on toes. Let's just let everybody be free and have liberty and become prosperous.
I appreciate all of you answering those questions. You all bring unique backgrounds and perspectives. We've ended this portion. I'm going to now go to the closing statements. And as I said, we do the reverse order for closing statements. So I'll begin with Ann Segerstrom.
Okay, city government is the most granular level of civic participation, and as a council member, the decisions you make on behalf of your fellow residents can affect how the city functions in both the short and long term. If re-elected, expect a representative who is 100% committed to Sonora and its residents, and an individual who respects the nonpartisan position of a council member to work for the benefit of all and with all the other council members. And thank you very much for the opportunity, and remember to vote on March 5th.
And Stephen Opie.
So on election, March 5th, if elected, I would love to, support change in a good way that is good for all. Help people become prosperous, free, live their lives, budget responsibly, have fiscal responsibility, which is, of course, part of budget. And, of course, let's fix some roads around here because that's about the biggest complaint I've heard door knocking.
And Bess Levine.
Yeah, first I would just like to say that I'm so grateful for everyone who supported me this far and everyone who trusts me to represent them as a city council member. I've had the privilege of talking with so many of you and meeting so many new people, hearing your concerns and your hopes and dreams for our city. I want everyone to know that to me your voice matters and that I'm simply here to amplify your voice on the Sonora City Council if I'm elected. Thank you.
And Darren Duez.
If elected, I'll stand for the people. I think we do a good job here in the city. This term of city council, I think, has been pretty well received. There hasn't been very many issues, but community first is where I'd like to go. I'd like to see that we talk to the community more and more outreach. I don't think that, no present one included, but the city does a huge outsource of PR to where you can have like town halls or meet and greets with them. I think that we've lost that through the COVID time. I think we need to get back to that. Twisting the ear of somebody sitting in the office that's making the decision for you has been falling on deaf ears. So I'd like to move forward with that. I am an out-of-the-box thinker. I make sure that every T and I is crossed and dotted. When we go to budgets or plans or everything, I do all that math out myself. I just don't trust the numbers on a page. Being there for the people, listening to them and going through some of the issues that they're having, I want to make sure that I represent my constituents at the best and voting how they'd like to be voted for.
Well, thank all four of you for coming in today and running for office. We've been hearing from Darren Duez, Bess Levine, Stephen Opie, and Ann Segerstrom. I'm BJ Hansen. I was your moderator tonight. A reminder, if you missed any of this forum or any of the past forums, they are archived for playback anytime on mymotherlode.com. And don't forget to vote on March 5th.
The Tuolumne County Farm Bureau is hosting a Candidates Night, Tuesday, February 6th at the Elks Lodge in Sonora. It's your chance to see the candidates face-to-face in all 3 supervisors' races, as well as Sonora City Council. Tuolumne County and the city of Sonora are faced with critical decisions in 2024 and beyond, and you'll want to know where each candidate stands on a variety of issues. Doors open at 5:30 and Candidates Night begins at 6. For more information, call 209-522-7278.
Take a good look at the tree branches that hang over your home and yard. Are they strong, or is there a chance they could break and fall? Nate's Tree Service, run by 6th-generation Tuolumne County residents with 30-plus years of experience in the tree service industry, can trim those limbs to keep you, your family, and your property safe. And with Nate's bucket truck, they can trim trees over 100 feet up. Give Nate's a call at 532-2460, 532-2460. Nate's Tree Service, license number 953843.